My mom didn't even open the door all the way. She kept the chain on like I was a stranger. "Anna," she whispered, eyes flicking down the hallway. "Don't make a scene. The neighbors will notice." I could see my own suitcase behind her ankle. 2 cardboard boxes sat outside like trash, and on the living room rug, on the rug my daughter used to do puzzles on, Lily was curled up asleep, her school hoodie pulled over her knees, her sneakers still on, like they'd parked her there, like she was just something to be collected when I got home. I said, "Let me in." My dad's voice came from inside, calm and firm. "You had 30 days. We told you. This is for the best." For the best. For who? In that second, I understood something I hadn't let myself think. They were willing to let my child lose everything. If you've ever heard your own family say, "for the best," while they're hurting you, stay with me. And if this hits a nerve, tap like so it reaches someone who needs it. 6 months earlier, I didn't have an emergency plan. I had a lease, a job, and a routine. I'm a nurse. 12-hour shifts. Charting until my eyes blur. Coffee that tastes like cardboard. I'm good at staying calm. It's part of the job. Lily was 9. 3rd grade. The kind of kid who gets nervous when adults raise their voices. Then my rent jumped so high it didn't matter how many extra shifts I begged for. Same apartment, same broken mailboxes, just a number I couldn't meet. That's when my parents offered what sounded like a lifeline. "Come here," my mother said. "Just for a little while. Family helps family," my father added. "You can get back on your feet. Lily will be stable." I believed them because I wanted to. Because when you're exhausted, you grab the first hand that reaches for you. Their house was neat, quiet, controlled. The first week, they were pleasant. My mom cooked. My dad asked Lily about school. They offered to watch her when I worked late. I kept myself small. I cleaned. I paid what I could. I said thank you too many times. Then the comments started. Not yelling, just little sentences that made you doubt yourself. "You're always tired," my mom said while I packed Lily's lunch. My dad looked over his paper. "Maybe if you were better organized, you wouldn't be scrambling." My mom sighed. "It's hard raising a child like this. It's a lot." I swallowed it, because I didn't want Lily to hear. Because I thought if I stayed quiet enough, they wouldn't push. They pushed anyway. My mom waited until Lily was in the shower. She sat at the kitchen table with a notebook open like she was running a meeting. My dad stood behind her, arms crossed. 30 days, my mother said. "That's fair." "To move out?" I asked, like I'd misheard. My dad answered, "We can't do this forever. This is motivation. You'll thank us later." After that, every day felt like a timer inside my chest. I searched between shifts. I called listings in supply closets. I filled out applications that wanted fees just to be rejected. Every place wanted a deposit I didn't have. Every place wanted credit I couldn't fix overnight. The detail that felt wrong was how relaxed my parents were. They weren't stressed. They were comfortable. My mom bought new throw pillows. My dad talked about repainting the guest room, like they already knew I wouldn't be there. On day 23, I came home after midnight. The hallway light was on. 2 cardboard boxes sat outside the door. My boxes. I tried my key. The lock had been changed. That's when my mother cracked the door, chain still on, and hissed not to be loud. That's when my father said, "You had 30 days. That's when I saw Lily on the floor. I crouched beside her and touched her cheek. She startled awake, eyes wide. "Mom?" "It's okay," I whispered. "Because what else do you say when it isn't?" She blinked and mumbled, "Grandma said you were coming." My stomach dropped. So they hadn't just locked me out. They'd told my child a story. I picked Lily up. She wrapped around my neck, heavy with sleep. I loaded what I could into my car and drove with no plan. We slept in the car in a grocery store lot, doors locked, my keys clenched between my fingers like that meant anything. 2 days later, after a social worker at my hospital asked why I looked wrecked, I walked into a family shelter holding Lily's hand. I told Lily it was temporary, but the words sounded like air. The shelter intake was worse than I expected. A woman behind a glass window asked questions like she was reading a script. "Any domestic violence? Any substance use?" Any family support? I wanted to say, my family is the reason I'm here, but I just shook my head and signed forms with a pen tied to the counter. They gave us 2 twin bunks in a room shared with another mom and her son. Lily didn't complain. That was the problem. She laid her jacket on the mattress and smoothed it flat, like she could iron a home into existence. When lights went out, I heard her whisper to herself, "It's temporary," like she was trying to convince her own body. I kept replaying that living room rug, the way my mother's voice stayed low and polite, the way my father said, "for the best," like it was a medical decision, the way they worried about neighbors, not about a 9-year-old sleeping in her shoes. And under all of it, there was a question I couldn't stop asking. Why did they rush it? Why lock me out on day 23? People don't shorten deadlines unless they need something fast. That night, Lily asked, "Did I do something bad?" I said, "No. Adults made choices." She nodded like she understood, but she didn't. The next morning, my mother texted me. Not, "Are you safe?" Not, "Where is Lily?" Just, "Don't embarrass the family." And I realized this wasn't just them pushing me out. It was them protecting something. If you've ever been told to be grateful while someone takes your child's security, drop a comment. Endure or fight. Part 1 end. I didn't know what they were hiding yet. I only knew it mattered more to them than my daughter's bed. Part 2. Shelter life teaches you to live on quiet rules. You don't ask what happened to the woman crying in the stairwell. You don't leave your phone unattended. You smile at your kid like you're not counting every dollar in your head. Lily started sleeping with her backpack on the bed beside her, like it was an extra limb. Every night, she lined up her shoes neatly under the bunk. It was her way of controlling something. I kept working. I had to. At the hospital, I could handle blood, codes, families screaming in waiting rooms, but I couldn't handle my mother's messages. People are asking where you are. Your father is stressed. Don't ruin Thanksgiving for everyone. Thanksgiving. That should have been background noise. A date on a calendar. Instead, it felt like a threat. The first real crack in their story came from Lily's school. A counselor called me in the afternoon. Her voice was gentle in that trained way. "Anna, we received a change of address form." I froze. "From who?" "It's signed by your parents," she said. They listed their home as Lily's primary address and requested all mail be sent there. I couldn't speak for a second. Because I hadn't signed anything. Because I hadn't authorized anything. Because Lily had been sleeping in a shelter and my parents were filing paperwork like they were her stable home. What else did they submit? I asked. There was a pause. Papers rustling. A request to be added as emergency contacts, the counselor said. And a note about guardianship support. They wrote that you've been struggling. My face went hot. Not just humiliation, fear. When people write struggling about a mother, it doesn't float in the air. It sticks to your record. I went straight from work to the school office. I brought my driver's license, Lily's birth certificate, our shelter paperwork. The secretary looked uncomfortable. She slid a folder toward me and said, "Your parents seemed very concerned." Concerned, that word again. Always soft. Always a cover. Inside the folder, I saw copies of emails. My mother had written the principal about stability and routine. My father had asked whether the school offers resources for children whose mother is overwhelmed. It read like they were preparing a case. Not to help me. To replace me. On the walk back to my car, my phone rang. It was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. She left a message that sounded caring if you didn't know her. "Honey, call me. We're worried. Lily needs stability." Then, in the last second, her tone shifted thin and sharp. "And don't tell anyone you're at a shelter. Do you hear me?" That's how I knew the shame wasn't accidental. It was part of the plan. That night, Lily sat cross-legged on the bunk and said, "Grandma told my teacher you were sick." My throat tightened. "What did you say?" "I said you're not sick," Lily answered quickly, then looked down. "But Grandma said, if I wanted my own room again, I had to be nice." There it was. The manipulation aimed straight at a 9-year-old. The promise of safety in exchange for silence. If you're still here, tell me in the comments, have you ever watched an adult use a child's hope like a leash? because that's what it felt like. I decided to confront my parents, not to reconcile, but to understand what they were doing. I drove to their house on my day off. I left Lily with the shelter staff and told her I'd be back before dinner. My mother opened the door like she'd been expecting me. She didn't invite me in. She stepped onto the porch, blocking the entrance with her body. "You shouldn't come here," she said. "People will see." "People?" I repeated. "Or the neighbors you're so afraid of?" Her mouth tightened. "We tried to help you. You refused to be practical." "Practical?" I asked. "You locked my child out." My dad appeared behind her, calm as ever. "Lower your voice." My mom crossed her arms. "We are doing what's best for Lily." "Then why are you filing school forms?" I asked. "Why are you telling them I'm sick?" My dad's eyes flicked, just for a second. We had to," he said. "If something happens, Lily needs stability. And who gives that?" I said. "You?" My mother nodded like it was obvious. "We have a home. We have a reputation. You're in a shelter." There it was again. Not love. Not safety. Reputation. I leaned closer. "Why did you change the locks early? Day 23. My mother's jaw clenched. My father answered too quickly. "We told you 30 days. You didn't listen. We couldn't keep living with uncertainty." "Uncertainty," I echoed, staring at them. "Or you needed me gone for something." My mom's eyes flashed, but her voice stayed controlled. "Anna, stop. You're being dramatic." "Then explain the money," I said. Their faces didn't change, but the air did. My dad's nostrils flared, just slightly. "What money?" my mother asked. I didn't actually know yet. I just watched the way they reacted, and I knew I'd hit a nerve. My dad stepped forward. "This conversation is over." My mom's tone softened, like she was soothing a child. "Come back when you're calmer. We can talk as a family." "As a family," I repeated, like I was still included, like they hadn't already tried to erase me. I got back in my car with my hands shaking. I sat there for a minute and realized something else that felt wrong. My parents weren't worried about Lily's shelter. They were worried about someone else finding out. On the drive back, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a photo, a small white house, with a front porch and a maple tree out front. The caption said, "Oak Ridge." I stared at it until my eyes burned, because I'd never seen that house before in my life. But somehow, my name was attached to it. And if you don't want to miss what happened next because this is where they tried to spin it into my fault, subscribe. I wish I'd had these warnings sooner. Part 2 end. I didn't know who sent the photo. I only knew my parents had something on Oak Ridge Street and they didn't want me near it. Part 3. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lily on that rug with her shoes still on. And now I saw a house I'd never been told about. On my lunch break, I texted the unknown number. "Who is this?" No reply. I called it. Straight to voicemail. I saved the photo anyway, and zoomed in until the pixels broke apart. There was a house number on the mailbox. Oak Ridge Street. After my shift, I drove there alone. Oak Ridge was quiet, trimmed hedges, porch lights that came on automatically. I found the house from the photo and parked across the street. Someone lived there, curtains drawn, a minivan in the driveway. I sat watching, feeling ridiculous and sick at the same time. Then my father's car rolled up like it belonged there. He got out, walked to the door, and let himself in without knocking. My stomach turned hard. That meant he had a key. That meant this wasn't some random listing. This was something my parents controlled. I snapped a picture of his car in the driveway. My hands shook so badly it came out blurry, but it was enough. I waited, thinking he'd come back out fast. He didn't. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Finally, the front door opened, and a woman stepped out with a grocery bag. She waved at my dad like they were friendly. He handed her a white envelope. She tucked it under her arm and went inside. Rent. That's what it looked like. Casual, routine. I wanted to march up and ask who she was, but I pictured my dad's smile and how easily he could turn this into, "Anna is harassing people." So I stayed in my car, heart pounding, collecting quiet evidence like that was a normal thing for a daughter to do against her own father. On the drive back, My mother sent another text. Don't involve outsiders. No context. No question mark. Like she knew exactly where I was. That's when it clicked. They weren't just controlling me, they were tracking me. Back at the shelter, I forced myself to act normal. Lily ran up with a drawing. 2 stick figures holding hands. A house bigger than the shelter. She pointed at it and said, "That's our new house." She didn't ask where it was. She just needed to believe it existed. I went to the shelter office and asked for legal aid referrals. The case manager, Denise, handed me a list and said quietly, "You look like someone pulled the floor out from under you." I told her the truth in 1 sentence. "My parents are trying to make me look unfit." Denise didn't gasp. She just nodded. "Document everything. Screenshots. Dates. Don't meet them alone." Denise asked if my parents had ever threatened to take Lily. I told her about the school forms, the struggling language, the way my mom dangled your own room like bait. Denise's expression tightened. "They're building a narrative," she said. "And narratives matter in court." I asked, "Court?" She didn't sugarcoat it. Sometimes families do this to control money. Sometimes they do it to control children. Often it's both. I went back to Lily and watched her color at the communal table. Other kids ran past, loud and restless. Lily stayed quiet, shoulders hunched, like she was trying not to need anything. That hurt worse than any insult my mother ever threw at me. Later, Lily whispered, "Grandma said if I tell people we're here, you'll get in trouble." I stared at her. When did she say that? Lily shrugged. "On the phone. She called the shelter once. She said she was checking on me." My skin went cold. My mother had found the shelter before Margaret did, or at least she'd tried, and she'd reached my child first. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I started digging. County records, rental listings, anything with the word Oak Ridge. Most of it was noise, but one thing landed like a stone. The owner name on that property wasn't my parents'. It was Margaret Wilson, my grandmother. We weren't close. She was wealthy and private, the kind of person who gives help like a transaction and expects you to keep your pride intact. Still, I hadn't spoken to her in months. Now her name was on that house, and my father had a key. I called. It rang longer than I expected. When she answered, her voice was sharp. "Anna, I need to ask you something," I said. "Do you own a house on Oak Ridge Street?" "Yes," she said. "Why?" "Because my dad has access," I said. "And someone is living there." Her breathing changed. "Where are you calling from?" "At a family shelter," I said, forcing the words out clean. Silence. Then a sound like a glass set down hard. "You're where?" "I didn't know about Oak Ridge," I said. "I didn't know it existed." "I gave your parents the keys," she said. "I told them to coordinate with you." "They coordinated by locking my child out," I answered. Margaret went quiet in a way that felt dangerous. Then she said, "Tell me everything." So I did. Rent increase. Temporary offer. 30-day deadline. Day 23. Lily on the rug. I didn't cry. My voice stayed flat. But my hands shook so hard I had to press them between my knees. When I finished, she asked, "Did they ever mention the house?" "No. They told me you were fine," she said, like she was tasting the lie. If you're watching and thinking, "I'd never let anyone do that to my kid," hit like. Not for me. For every mother who's been told to swallow it and smile, the next morning was cold and gray. I was zipping Lily's coat when a black sedan rolled up outside the shelter. A driver stepped out and opened the back door. Margaret climbed out like she owned the air. She looked at the shelter sign, then at Lily, then at me. Her eyes tightened. She didn't hug me. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just said, very slowly, "Why aren't you living in the Oak Ridge house?" I answered. "Because I didn't know it existed." Her face didn't explode with anger. It shifted into certainty. She nodded once. "Get in the car." Part 3 end. I thought she was coming to save us. I didn't realize she was coming to put my parents on display where they couldn't rewrite the truth. Part 4. Margaret didn't take us straight to Oak Ridge. She slid a manila envelope across the table toward me. Inside were copies of documents I'd never seen. A deed with Margaret Wilson as owner. A letter addressed to me, dated months ago, saying the house was a backup plan for me and Lily. And a note in my mother's handwriting, keys delivered. Anna will move in when ready. My stomach rolled. So they told you? I started. They told me you wanted privacy, Margaret said, that you didn't want help unless you asked. She said it like she was repeating a line that now sounded ridiculous. What do you want to do? I asked her. Margaret looked at Lily, then back at me. I want the truth placed where it can't be softened. I knew what she meant before she said it. Thanksgiving, she added. Your parents' party. Everyone there. My first reaction was panic. I didn't want a scene. I didn't want Lily in a room full of adults pretending this was normal. But Margaret's calm was different from my parents' calm. It wasn't denial. It was focus. We'll go, I said. Lily looked up. We're going to Grandma's? I forced a smile. Just for dinner. At the house, Margaret didn't let us walk in first. She made us wait in the car while she went inside alone. Through the windshield, I watched her ring the bell. My mother opened the door with a bright smile until she saw who it was. The smile fell off her face like a mask. Margaret stepped in without being invited. A few minutes later, she came back out and opened my door. Now, she said. Inside, the house smelled like turkey and cinnamon and something fake like air freshener trying to cover a deeper odor. Relatives filled the living room, people I hadn't seen in years asking, "Where have you been?" Like it was small talk. My mother moved fast, intercepting me with a plate in her hands. Anna, she said too loudly. I'm so glad you came. We were worried. Her eyes were warning me even as her mouth smiled. My dad appeared at her shoulder. Let's not do this today, he murmured. Do what? I asked. He leaned in. Air dirty laundry. For Lily's sake. For Lily's sake. Always that phrase. Always used like a gag. Lily stood close to my leg, sensing the shift. I kept a hand on her shoulder. Margaret didn't mingle. She walked to the center of the room like she was stepping into a courtroom. She waited until the chatter thinned, then said, I need everyone's attention. The room quieted. My mother laughed nervously. Mom, is everything okay? Margaret didn't answer her. She looked at the relatives instead. I purchased a small house on Oak Ridge Street as a contingency for Anna and Lily. My father's face tightened. My mother's smile stayed in place, but her eyes darted. Margaret pulled documents from her envelope. She held them up, one by one, like exhibits. The house was not meant to be rented, she said. It was meant to be occupied by my granddaughter and her child. A murmur moved through the room. Margaret continued, voice steady. Instead, the house was leased to a tenant. The lease was signed while Anna was living in a shelter. My mother finally spoke, voice sweet. That's not what happened. Margaret turned toward her. Then explain the rent payments going into your account. She laid out printed bank statements. Dates, amounts, deposits, proof. My father tried to laugh it off. This is private, not here. Margaret's eyes didn't blink. You made it public when you let a child go homeless. Silence hit like a slap. Then Margaret said the sentence that changed the air completely. You left Lily without a bed so you could collect rent. Lily's fingers tightened on my sleeve. My mother's face went pale. My father's jaw worked like he was chewing a lie. We did it for the family, my mother said quickly. We were trying to preserve resources. Anna is impulsive. She would have wasted it. My dad nodded. We planned to give it back when she proved she could handle it. It was for Lily's future. And that's when I realized their strategy wasn't to deny. It was to flip the story, to make me look unstable, to make them look responsible. My father cleared his throat and said to the room, Anna has been under stress. She's been making choices. He glanced at Lily, then back at everyone. We've been doing our best. Margaret didn't raise her voice. She simply said, Your best was theft. Then she turned to me. Anna, tell them where you've been sleeping. My mouth went dry. Every instinct screamed not to say it. But Lily deserved adults who told the truth. In a family shelter, I said. With my 9-year-old, the room went still. My mother whispered, Why would you say that? like the shame was mine to carry. That was my secret, too. I'd been protecting their image even while they destroyed my life. And suddenly, I was done. Margaret looked at my parents. Effective immediately, I'm cutting off all financial support to you. You will reimburse what you collected, and my attorney will handle the rest. My father's face hardened. You can't just... Margaret's driver appeared in the doorway, and behind him, a man in a suit I hadn't noticed earlier. Margaret's attorney, the real reason she'd brought us. My mother's voice sharpened, no longer sweet. You're going to tear this family apart over money? Margaret replied, No. You tore it apart over greed. I thought that was the end. I thought exposure was enough. Then my mother turned to Lily, crouched, and said softly, Honey, do you want to come home with Grandma and Grandpa tonight? We have your room ready. My blood went cold. She was still trying, right in front of witnesses. Lily looked at her, then at me. Her eyes filled, but she didn't speak. Before I tell you what Lily did next, I need you to guess. Would she go with my parents to keep the peace, or would she choose me and risk losing them? Put your prediction in the comments. Part 4. End. And I realized my mother wasn't just stealing money. She was making a move for my child, right there in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. Part 5. Everything in me wanted to grab Lily and leave. But if we walked out without clarity, my parents would keep telling their version, and their version always sounded clean. Margaret didn't let it stay vague. She stepped between my mother and Lily like a door closing. Do not speak to the child about custody, she said, calm but final. My mother straightened, offended. Custody? We're offering comfort. My dad jumped in. This is exactly what we mean, Anna twists things. We're just trying to keep Lily safe. Safe. From me. In front of a room full of relatives, Margaret's attorney spoke for the first time. Anna is Lily's legal parent, he said. Any attempt to remove the child without consent could be construed as interference. He didn't threaten. He stated it like weather. My mother's eyes flashed, and for the first time, I saw the anger she usually hid. You're really going to let her do this? She snapped at the room. You're going to watch Margaret humiliate us? A few people looked away. No one defended her. Not loudly, anyway. That was another off detail. When proof is placed on the table, most people choose silence. They don't want to be pulled into the blast radius. They don't want to admit they ignored the signs. Lily tugged my sleeve. Mom, she whispered. Can we go? I knelt to her level. Yes, right now. My voice stayed steady, but my hands were shaking. As we walked toward the door, my father called out, Anna, don't be selfish. Think about Lily's future. I stopped and turned back. I have, I said. That's why I'm leaving. If you've ever been told to endure because you're strong, you'll understand this. That word gets used like a collar. Outside, the air was cold and clean. Lily climbed into the sedan beside Margaret. I sat in the front, staring straight ahead. We didn't talk on the drive. Not because there was nothing to say, because saying it would make it real. At Oak Ridge, Margaret handed me a key, a simple silver key. Not symbolic, not dramatic, just something my parents had kept from me. The house smelled like dust and lemon cleaner, like it had been staged for strangers. Someone else's furniture was gone, but the marks were still on the carpet. A nail hole where a picture used to hang. It made my skin crawl. Margaret walked through each room, checking windows, checking locks. This should have been yours months ago, she said. I nodded. My throat was too tight for words. Lily wandered into the smallest bedroom and froze. It had a window facing the maple tree. She whispered, Is this mine? Yes, I said. Her face crumpled. She didn't sob loudly. She just covered her mouth and cried the way kids do when they're trying to be brave. That was the moment my restraint almost broke. But I held it. Because she needed me steady more than she needed me dramatic. The next week moved fast. Margaret's attorney filed for an accounting of the rent and formally demanded repayment. A report was made about the forged school forms. The shelter case manager helped me document the lockout and the nights in the car. My parents tried to call, then text, then leave voicemails that swung between guilt and sweetness. Come home. This is tearing the family apart. Think about what people will say. Lily misses us. They never said, I'm sorry. Not once. Here's the new secret that finally made the whole thing click. When Margaret confronted them privately after Thanksgiving, my father admitted they were behind on their own bills, not because they were starving, because they'd been gambling with investments they didn't understand. They saw Oak Ridge as a way to patch their mistakes without anyone knowing. And they chose to patch it with my daughter's stability. They called it for the family. They meant for themselves. Lily's school updated her records. Her counselor met with her weekly for a while. One day, Lily told me, I don't like Grandma's rules. I asked, which grandma? She said, the one who says we can't tell people things. I hugged her and said, we don't keep secrets that hurt us. Margaret didn't move in. She didn't take over. She didn't even decorate. She simply showed up with a locksmith, a grocery delivery, and a list of vetted therapists. Then she stepped back. One evening, I sat on the Oak Ridge porch after Lily fell asleep in her own bed. The neighborhood was quiet. The porch light buzzed softly. I thought about how close I'd come to losing custody just by being tired and broke. I thought about how easily family can become a weapon. Lily asked me later, are we poor? I told her, we're okay, and we're safe. She nodded like safety was the only currency that mattered. 20% from the end, I want to ask you something, because I still don't have a neat answer. If your parents stole from you for your child's future and tried to paint you as unfit, would you forgive them? Or would you cut them off to protect your kid no matter what it costs? Tell me in the comments, because I know people will disagree, and I genuinely want to hear what you'd do. The last time I heard from my mother, she left a voicemail. Her voice was soft, wounded. Anna, we did what we had to. One day you'll understand. I deleted it without listening twice. Today, Lily has her room. A desk for homework, a shelf for her books, a door that locks from the inside if she wants privacy. I still work as a nurse, not because I'm trapped, because it's my job and I'm good at it. Margaret doesn't control my life. She doesn't demand gratitude. She just shows up when the truth needs someone stronger than denial. And the clearest thing I've learned is this. Family isn't the people who feel entitled to hurt you. It's the people who stop the hurt, especially when the victim is a child.